Amusement Atrocity. I got in my car and began driving up north on the highway towards a different state. From there, I'd be spending the day at an amusement park with Colin, Steve, Frank, and Chad. It was mid-September and the sun was out in full. I arrived in the parking lot around noon, and 10 minutes later, Steve, Frank, and Chad arrived after that.
I'm trying to shake up all the rides, G!
Exclaimed Steve. Yep, we'll have to go and purchase our tickets first, then we can go and hit up anything we want from there, I replied. We began walking across the gargantuan-sized parking lot in the hot sun towards the ticket booths. However, as we walked along the road trailing the parking lot, we noticed a blue minivan circling the area, making its rounds. We made it to the ticket booth and got our tickets, which expired at 10 p.m., meaning we had 10 hours of time. We entered the amusement park and debated on which ride to hit up first.
Man, we gotta hit up the cheese!
Exclaimed Steve. The amusement park had just built a new ride called the Cheese Wiser. It was their highest yet, and over 300 feet it soared in the sky.
I don't know, bro.
Replied Chad.
I'm trying to keep things bro-key today. We don't want to take any chances about anybody getting hurt, now would we, guys? I say we hit up the food court instead for some bro-lunch.
Now that sounds like a fine-ass plan to me, G! We need some Gates grub!
Said Steve.
Yay! Lunch!
Piped Frank. We made our way to the food court and walked inside. We found ourselves a table near the windows and went to grab our food. The food was served cafeteria style, where you can grab a tray and walk through the lunch line. The food they served wasn't anything special. It was like school lunch, except they had a much wider selection. I ended up getting a brisket sandwich and mozzarella sticks. Colin got a potato salad with celery. Frank got the fried cheese curds. Chad got the spicy Southwest protein burrito. And finally, Steve got the Code Red cheeseburger with extra cheese, which looked disgusting.
Now with all this cheese, a boy gonna be stronger than the fucking Hulk!
Exclaimed Steve. Steve, that is way too much cheese, Colin added.
Man, you just a pussy. This shit the buy!
Yeah, potato man, leave him alone. You need our calcium now, don't we, bros?
Said Chad. We paid for our food and headed back to our table. As we got back and sat down, however, we noticed a chubby figure wearing a black hoodie sitting down at the booth next to us. They nibbled on an uncooked hot dog. Hello? Sir? Are you okay? I asked the figure. That was when the figure turned to reveal itself. It was none other than Herbert Ernie himself.
Didn't expect to see me now, did you boys?
Said Herbert snarkishly. Oh, no. What do you think you are doing here? Replied Colin.
I consulted the funky spirits last night in my crystal ball, and they told me to keep watch of you boys today.
Herbert looked ridiculous. He wore a massive black wizard coat made out of thick wool, oversized corduroy shorts, sandals, and a pointy hood to top it all off. Below his shorts, he wore a pair of those black tights, the kind that athlete hipsters wear when going trail running and whatnot. Herbert, please leave. This is the only time I'll ask you nicely, I said sternly.
No, my name is Master Wizard Ernie, and it's my sole honor duty to protect you boys, so you don't get hurt. Before I do anything today, you messing with me.
No, Herbert, you can't come. This is our trip, and all you'll do is get us in trouble, Colin exclaimed.
Yeah, G, how am I supposed to ride the cheese wiser with this fucking dude around? He gonna scare away all the chicks, cause we already know that when your boy steps off the wiser, all the chicks gonna be swarming. Let's not jump to conclusions now, Stevie. I can use my crystal ball to manifest all the ladies.
Okay, Herbert, how about this? You can stay with us under one condition, I said. You follow our program and do what we want to do. You do what we say and nothing else.
You've got yourself a deal,
said Herbert as he reached out for a handshake. I took a look at his pale, chubby hand. His fingernails were 4 inches long, yellow, and had hair growing on them, so I politely declined the gesture. Herbert then watched over us as we finished our food. Steve wasn't able to finish the Code Red cheeseburger, surprise. So Herbert and Frank argued over who got to finish it off. After we were done eating, we exited the food court building and went up to hit up some rides.
Oh man, here we go. Yippee cheese white time,
Steve exclaimed.
Cheese.
Frank said.
Why are you always the biggest bitch?
I think I might have to agree with Frank bro on this one,
mentioned Chad.
Doc recommends it's good to wait at least an hour after eating to do any physical activity.
Chad, it's sitting down on a ride, I replied. I went back and forth with Chad for a little bit, but soon I gave up, as he wouldn't budge. Just then, Herbert piped his own idea.
I say we go in the teacups.
Fine, Herbert, you can go in the teacups and we'll wait for you here. Herbert went and stood in line for the teacups. It was mostly little kids besides him. We figured that we could let Herbert have a little bit of freedom, as he hasn't acted too crazy yet. Huge mistake. The 5 of us stood by a bunch of benches whilst we watched Herbert ride the teacups. Herbert didn't do much to spin around fast. He just sat there. A cheesy grin sat on his face as he spun around. He sat like this for the entire 3 minutes. And after the ride was finished, Herbert stood up, walked out of the ride area. Next, we would decide on what to do from there. We stood around talking by the benches about what to do next. Steve was dead set on riding the Cheesewiser, but Chad was dead set on waiting the full hour to actually ride anything. He sounded desperate to not ride anything, which was weird. How about we do laser tag? I suggested.
Family man, you'll be the stealthiest fucker around. Just you watch,
said Steve. We began walking our way over to the laser tag arena, which is indoors. The building is very dull from the outside, but it was outer space themed, which seemed like a very typical theme for something such as laser tag. We strolled inside and waited for the next round to start. We were sat in a waiting room where a TV gave us instructions for during the game. There were about 20 people total, including us, who'd be playing, and the game room was kept dark, as we were given in the instructions. I casually looked behind me and witnessed the silhouette of Herbert Ernie hiding in the back corner of the room. He now had his pointy wizard hood up as he was rubbing his hands together as if he was planning something. The worker led us into the gear up room after we finished the safety brief. In the gear up room, we grabbed our guns and our vests. About a minute later, and the game began. In hindsight, we should have stuck together as a team during the game, but we didn't, as we all had our own plans in mind. My plan involved hiding out, only breaking cover to get a better position. Colin claimed he was going to go and do something similar. Frank said he would run around frantically and shoot everybody as much as he could, and Chad simply opted to camp out behind a cutout of an alien, and I don't know where Herbert went. The arena was huge. It had 3 stories to it and tons of little hallways and rooms to hide in. I simply decided to go to the second floor and snipe people from a room that had a window overlooking the main area. I was on the green team, so I had to look for people on the orange team to shoot at. I stayed there for a little while and got some good shots in as well. However, I sensed that the orange team was closing in on me, and all my teammates were on the first and third floors, and so I decided to move positions. It was risky, but luckily I made it to another hiding spot on the 3rd floor. This is the perfect sniper spot. I had a crystal clear view over the main area and was pretty isolated, meaning I was protected from the orange team, though unfortunately this wasn't quite the case. I was in the middle of scanning the main area for people to shoot. I would snipe them from my post. But you see though, in laser tag you can't shoot if you've just been shot. Your vest will flash for about 5 seconds before you can shoot again. Well, the thing is, that was happening to me. I would find myself a target to try and shoot at them, only to find out that I had just been shot, causing my blaster to deactivate. So I looked behind me, towards where I entered, and I saw no one. Who could be shooting? I thought to myself. I looked around some more, but I just couldn't find any other spot where a person can get a shot at me from. That's when I noticed the point I was being shot at was coming from above me. That's when I saw it. You see, since I was on the top story of the arena, the ceiling was directly above me. The ceiling was weird. It wasn't a typical ceiling, rather it consisted of a series of nets that hung loosely from the ceiling. I looked up at the nets and noticed something funky. Right in the middle of the net ceiling above the main area was a lump hanging down in the nets. I then saw who it was. It was no one other than Herbert Ernie himself. I could tell because the fluorescent black light from the arena made his teeth and eyes glow in the dark. His eyes had a crazed look in them, which the glow in the dark aspect made even more apparent. Herbert would wait for my vest to reset before shooting me with his blaster again, from up in the nets. Herbert then took note of the fact that I saw him. He winked at me and began crawling over to my exact location. He was making extremely slow progress, however, if any at all, because of the nets. Just then, the inevitable happened. The nets he sat in were extremely thin and not at all taut, meaning he would cause the nets to sag about 10 feet from where they were supposed to be. As Herbert continued making his crawl, the nets snapped, sending Herbert in a vine swing across the main area. He was now hanging onto the net for dear life, as it hung on by one single string, attached to the rest of the nets. He still wore the pointy black hood and all, and corduroy shorts too, but his light up orange laser tag vest made him look like a disco ball. His blaster hung loosely from the vest too. He began gathering a lot of people's attention who looked up at him. Herbert didn't do anything at first. He just held on there loosely, doing nothing. The entire laser tag arena went dead silent. Herbert then said some words.
Don't mind me, ladies. Once I get myself out of this jiffy, I can conduct some meet and greets.
Everyone watched in disbelief as Herbert just hung there, doing nothing. He then began to slowly climb his way back up into the net. He climbed it like a rope ladder. However, as he did so, a strand of netting holding Herbert on the net broke. This caused him to fall freely down the entire 70 feet to the ground floor. He hit the ground with a squish and immediately began squirming around as he tried to get up. He wasn't able to, though, because the net had entangled him. Everybody was shocked, to say the least.
Somebody help me! How is Master Wizard Ernie supposed to conduct his meet and greets if he's trapped in his own ectoplasm?
People simply stood around in a circle, muttering to each other in disbelief, as Herbert struggled helplessly. Then, out of nowhere, Steve appeared from around the corner. He wore a ghillie suit and looked like he was taking the game of laser tag way too seriously.
Let's get it, G! Ernie ass is finally down. Now we can finish it.
He exclaimed with excitement. I will have to admit it. It felt good knowing Herbert was now helplessly tangled in a net and unable to ruin anything else anymore. Everyone in the laser tag arena had paused their game and was now cheering and clapping for the defeat of Herbert Ernie. However, as Herbert struggled and the crowd cheered, Frank Wormings appeared from around a corner with a pair of scissors in his hand.
Excuse me?
Frank said in his pipsqueak voice as he made his way through the crowd. He then approached Herbert. At first, I was confused, but then I saw what he was about to do. "Frank, no!" I shouted from my sniper post. Frank was in the process of snipping Herbert free. He used the scissors to snip away at the netting, and before we all knew it, Herbert was hastily on his feet.
Thank you, Frankie.
Herbert said as he stood up in the crab pose.
"You're welcome, Herbert,"
replied Frank. A bunch of people were now pissed, specifically at Frank. A few guys rallied up on Frank and he was chased out of the laser tag arena. Meanwhile, Herbert was getting crazy. His crazy hair and wizard cloak were now flapping all over the place, as if they were in the wind. Except there was no wind. His hair became extremely staticky and stood straight up. His energy seemed electric in a way, dare I say. Herbert then proceeded to run frantically around the area, knocking and breaking things. Before we knew it, the entire arena was a wreck. The fire alarm began blaring and the sprinklers also went off, causing us to get soaked. The crowd began panicking and we all sprinted out of the laser tag area as fast as we could. Outside, the sun blinded us, so it took a few minutes to adjust our eyes. Everyone was forced to evacuate the arena, and 10 minutes later, we witnessed Herbert Ernie sneakily exit through the back door. He scurried up the hill and into the woods. We were all shook from what had just gone down. But we knew we had to try and forget about it if we wanted to have any kind of fun for the rest of the day. It was around 3 p.m. now, with the sun blaring in full. Steve was getting antsy.
Come on, man. We gotta ride the cheese whizer.
Steve was practically bouncing off the walls at this point, due to how excited he was to ride the cheese whizer. "Okay, fine, we can ride it now," said Colin.
"You bros go on ahead without me. I haven't worked out yet today, so I figured that while you bros ride some roller coasters, I'll do some calisthenics to keep my bro toned up for summer."
Chad said. "Chad, it's September. It's almost fall," mentioned Colin.
"Well, you know what they say, bros. No days off. Am I right? Right, bros? Right?"
"Okay, well, have fun," I told Chad.
Gee, it be cheese whizer time.
"Okay, but, where's Frank?" Colin asked. We then remembered that Frank was chased out of the laser tag arena by the group of guys who were gonna beat his ass.
Frown by me, man. Seems like Buster Man's getting what his ass deserves. We go right at him.
The three of us got in line for the cheese whizer, and before we knew it, we sat down in the carts. The ride operator pulled the seatbelts super tight. The carts we sat in were big cheese wedges in their shape. The three of us happened to be sitting right in the front row. We began slowly moving up the hill. Steve took out his phone and began recording for his Snapchat story. We began the typical slow ascent up the roller coaster. I glanced to my right to try and see what kind of calisthenic exercises that Chad was doing. What I witnessed was far from. I caught a glimpse of Chad by a few stands. He was munching on a jumbo-sized bag of caramel corn and was standing by the cotton candy stand. "Colin, look," I said as I pointed. Colin and I both witnessed the worker hand Chad some cotton candy. Chad eagerly walked back to the food court with his food and went inside. "Seems like Chad may not be as serious about the gains as he claims he is," Colin said. Meanwhile, Steve's going crazy on his Snap story. He was dancing up and down whilst bobbing his head to some uncatchy music. The roller coaster cart reached the top of the roller coaster. It did the typical U-turn before preparing for the big drop-off. Steve got a little too crazy with his Snap story though, because all the movement caused him to accidentally drop his phone off the roller coaster.
No, Bachi!
Exclaimed Steve as his phone fell over 300 feet to the swampy ground below. However, I then saw the dot of a mysterious figure in a pointy hood running towards the location of where Steve's phone would land. The roller coaster then went over the drop-off. It was steep too, very fast. The roller coaster did what it did, and before we knew it, the ride was over and we were back. The ride was sort of fun. Really got you dizzy though, that's for sure. We stepped out of the roller coaster cart and didn't feel like talking yet, as we immediately ran to the area where Steve's phone fell.
Man, I can't fucking find it, G!
Cried Steve as he brushed his foot through the swampy leaves. "Steve, you gotta be more careful," said Colin.
Shit.
We continued frantically searching for Steve's phone when we heard a voice calling to us.
Here you.
It called. We glanced up to see who it was. It was no one other than Herbert Ernie himself. "Oh, no, I said. "What are you doing here?" Herbert was in the process of walking over to our exact location. He stopped in front of us and proceeded to reach into the back of his pants. He pulled out none other than Steve's phone.
Your phone.
Steve took his phone from Herbert and made a few comments on it.
You, man, this shit nasty as a bitch.
Steve was right, as his phone is now covered in a weird slime and smelled like actual ass too. Well, at least it still worked.
Anywho, I need you boys' help. Must make his grand introduction to all the ladies.
No, Herbert. All you're gonna do is get us in trouble. At least leave us out of it. What do you even intend on doing?
I'm gonna drive my minivan into the park. I will greet all the ladies before giving the credit to you. Then we will have a breakdancing competition with a spicy twist, of course.
Herbert said creepily. "Herbert, no!" But it was too late. Herbert took off and began running as fast as he could. Not very fast. towards the parking lot. We knew right then and there that it would be of best action by us to get away from the amusement park as fast as possible. We needed to leave, since if Herbert was going to loop us into this, we did not want to stick around for it. We couldn't leave the area quite yet though, because we were missing people. "Come on," I exclaimed. "We have to find Frank and Chad." We took off back towards the food court area, as I knew for a fact that it was where I last saw Chad going inside of. We burst inside and saw Chad slouched over, chilling on one of the booths. He was sipping a Diet Pepsi with his arms resting behind his head.
What's up, bros? Just got my bro workout in.
"No time to talk. Where's Frank?"
He went into the back kitchen.
We immediately burst into the kitchen, which was an employees-only area. We didn't care, though. We had to retrieve Frank, as Herbert could bust through the park gates in his minivan at any second. "Frank!" Colin called out. Frank replied. His voice sounded muffled. We tracked the location of where his voice was coming from, but we didn't see him. That's when you heard Frank again, but this time he was right next to us. We looked to our side and witnessed a vat of cheese. A chubby figure then slowly stood up and emerged from the nacho cheese vat. It was Frank. "Frank, why the fuck are you in the cheese vat?" I asked. Frank was now covered head to toe in nasty nacho cheese sauce. Everything including his hair and his face were covered in cheese. You couldn't even see his eyes. "Frank, why were you in this?" Colin asked. That's when we remembered. Frank was chased out of laser tag by a bunch of angry dudes for snipping Herbert free, who then went on to beat his ass.
Huh? This bitch ass can't fight for shit!
Exclaimed Steve. "Okay, let's get out of here," Colin said. Frank hopped out of the cheese vat and we exited the kitchen. "Hey!" yelled at us as we ran out. We all ran out of the food court and over to the main entrance area. People gave us very weird looks, as Frank was still covered head to toe in cheese. Before we left, I thought it'd be a good idea to warn park staff about what Herbert was about to do. I was about to make an announcement via me shouting, but it was too late. We turned around to face the park gates and witnessed a blue minivan busting through them. The park staff and visitors both ran away in fright. I don't blame them. "I'm calling the cops!" a worker shouted. Herbert didn't care though. He continued driving into the park. He drove extremely slowly too, like under 3 miles per hour. I looked into the minivan window and witnessed his face. He had the pointy wizard hood pulled up yet again, and a cheesy grin sat on his chubby face. As soon as he caught sight of a group of women, he rolled down the window.
"Hello, ladies. It's Wizard Ernie. Would you like some candy?"
The women screamed and ran off. Herbert took action. He turned the minivan around hastily and slowly drove after him. The women continued running away from him. They ran to hide inside of a gift shop. Herbert didn't care though, as he literally drove the minivan into the gift shop. He crashed through the front display window.
Somebody hit me! Wizard Ernest!
Herbert said, referring to the group of women who were absolutely horrified. 5 minutes later and the cops arrived and Herbert was taken away. Luckily no one was hurt, but the amusement park had to be closed for a few weeks as a result of what Herbert had done. We all got in our cars and drove on home. Frank got his car seat all messy as a result of the cheese. But that was that. That concludes Amusement Atrocity.